Our second story out front, a carnival of trouble. About 100 passengers from the ill-fated cruise ship Triumph have filed a class action lawsuit against the cruise operator. The suit alleges that Carnival was negligent for allowing the Triumph to embark on the cruise and states Carnival knew or should have known that the vessel Triumph was likely to experience mechanical and or engine issues because of prior similar issues. A spokesman for Carnival tells us we are unable to comment on pending litigation at this time. Michael Winkleman is a maritime lawyer who filed the class action lawsuit. Thank you for taking the time to come on, sir. I've read all of this, and obviously I was down in Alabama last week. In the lawsuit, I wanted to start off with this, because you write something that a lot of passengers there on the ground were talking to me about. You said instead of taking the more than 3,000 passengers back to Galveston, where the cruise began, Carnival decided to go to Mobile, Alabama, because that's where the repair facility is. In so doing, Carnival forced the passengers to further harm and inconvenience by putting them on a 7-hour bus ride back to Galveston. Now, a lot of passengers told me they were given options, so we asked Carnival, and they said passengers were given a few options. You could go to Galveston, you could go to New Orleans, or you could stay in Mobile right there at Carnival's expense, obviously, and also pay for your flight home. So passengers were given choices. Are you saying that didn't happen for these people?
Well, first of all, good evening, Erin. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. In terms of the specifics as to whether they can stay in Mobile or New Orleans or Galveston, doesn't really make a difference as far as I'm concerned, because the real misconduct was, as what you just said, of dragging them across the Gulf of Mexico for 5 days instead of just turning around to go back to Mexico and flying them back home. And it's pretty clear that the reason for that was financially motivated.
So you're saying that there would have been a terminal which could have taken the ship, handled the repair, and all of those things that need to be done in Mexico?
Handling the repair, I don't know about, but they were about 150 miles north of Progreso, Mexico, which is a port that they actually call at, versus 500 miles from Mobile, Alabama. So they probably could have gotten off the ship the following day, but instead of that, they went through 4 or 5 days of a living nightmare. And
you think that was cheaper for Carnival?
Certainly.
Why?
I think it's certainly a lot cheaper to bus people from Mobile, Alabama to Galveston, Texas, than it is to charter flights from Mexico back to Galveston.
Right, but they offered them to spend the night in Mobile and then fly them home, so they did offer flights. I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm just making the point that they did offer flights for anyone who wanted them. Let me ask you this, though. Some of the details in your suit are very graphic, and they fit with what we heard from people. You say that this resulted in harm to the plaintiffs, and let me just read it to people, because I think this is worth everyone hearing. Plaintiffs were forced to sleep on the deck and in other communal areas on the vessel, relieve themselves into buckets, bags, showers, sinks, were given spoiled or rotting food that was unfit for reasonably safe human consumption. Due to the lack of working plumbing and sanitation systems on the vessel, sewage and or putrid water filled with urine and feces leaked onto floors, walls, and ceilings. Conditions became increasingly unbearable each day due to the lack of a working ventilation system, leading to noxious odors and gases. This is what it was like, and that is awful. But did this cause lasting injury to them?
Only time will tell. I mean, we're what, 3-4 days out from these people getting off the ship? It's really hard to know, but I mean, just common sense tells you that living around sewer for 5 days can cause some serious consequences, and we've already seen that from the roughly 100 or so people that have already contacted my offices. I'm hearing stories of lung infections, urinary tract infections, panic attacks. I mean, I think it's going to run the entire gamut of what we've seen. But Erin, I think the big thing is really just the emotional trauma and having to go through 5 days of these really awful conditions. So you're going to see a wide spectrum of what happened to all the people, but they all went through an awful situation at the negligence and/or intentional conduct of Carnival.
But how much money is that worth? Carnival's reimbursed the crews, given them $500 in discounted future cruises. How much money are you asking for? I mean, I know you don't know for everyone in the class, but at least for your particular clients, Matt and Melissa Crusan.
Sure. Erin, your opinion as to what you think the value of their case is worth is just as noble or is just as valid as mine is. And that's the whole point. With the U.S. legal system, it should be a jury that decides here's what they went through and makes a decision as to what their case was worth. I would point out, though, that I think it's worth a heck of a lot more than $500. And I would also point out that after the Concordia, now that was a terrifying few-hour experience of being in the Poseidon adventure, and my law firm represents numerous Costa Concordia passengers. Uninjured people, Erin, were offered $14,000. Uninjured people here were offered $500.
Right. But people died on that cruise.
Erin, I'm not talking about the people died. I'm talking about the people that were uninjured.
Right, but I mean, they could have died. I mean, the ship sank. I mean, it was different.
Sure. Of course it was different. But as an example, I think when you compare and contrast the two, it's pretty surprising. But of course, a number of people died on the Concordia, and that was awful. But these people were moments away from that. I mean, when you put profits over safety and customer experience, you're sort of teetering on that edge at any given time.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your taking the time. And still to come, a bizarre investigation in Los Angeles.